Hopefully, I want this to be interactive. I'm Jeff, Scheinrock, by the way. Hopefully, we can make this interactive. The title was Innovate.com, Innovate at UCLA picked the title. We're not going to talk about this. No, we will. But I want to address some other issues that go along with this that I've learned in teaching the classes that I teach at UCLA and also at a company that I have, which is called Originate. And Originate's a great example of innovation and how things change because we're a different company than what we started with years ago. Just to give you a little sense of the knowledge that I have in doing this, and then when I tell you what I've done, you're going to say, why in the hell are you listening to me? So one of the companies that I advised over the years used to be, the name used to be Plume. Does anybody know what that is? So Plume was a Stanford spin-out, and I went in as their interim CFO, and we did some strategy work for them. And it was pretty incredible. It was way ahead of its time. It was a butane-based cigarette, like electronic cigarette, but butane-based, before electronic cigarettes. And so we helped them with their strategy. And as part of this, you know, my business model was part cash, part equity, and everything that I worked with because I worked at a company that went from 0 to 7 billion in 6 years, and the IPO failed, and I never got equity, but yet I was the highest paid employee, and then we ended up selling the company for over $1 billion, and I didn't have any equity, and I said, damn it, I'm going to always get equity and everything going forward. And so that's why the model was part cash, part equity. Well, Plume is a great example of an innovation in everything we're talking about. It was a Stanford spin-out from two students who were in the design school. And they came up and they outsourced to Yves Bahar, a Fuse project, which is a designer, and came up with a really cool-looking device. And I was involved in helping them raise their initial money, which they raised from the Pritzker family, from the Hyatt Hotels, Nick Pritzker. And I can talk about this because I got permission. So he put $2 million in for a third of the company. It was a real early startup. Fast forward 6 months later, we raised $100 million from Japan Tobacco, which is the Winston and Camel brands from overseas. Okay. They wanted to buy out all the little shareholders, Japan Tobacco. They wanted to basically buy the company. And so I sold my shares. I did well. Don't feel bad for me. But Plume then became Pax. Anybody know what Pax is? So Pax is the #1 vaporizer in the world if you smoke loose leaf tobacco or cannabis. Marijuana. Okay. When I heard cannabis, I didn't know what it was. I'm old, and I found out it was marijuana. Well, today, Pax then turned into Juul. I sold my shares when it was Plume. I'm an idiot. Okay. But they innovated, okay? So I teach at Anderson venture initiation and entrepreneurship, and I teach business plan development, I teach negotiation, strategy, and structure, and I teach financial modeling for entrepreneurs. And I teach the full-time students, the fully employed students called FEMBA, and the executive MBA students. They're all different ages and experience. Most of the FEMBAs and MBAs work for very large corporations, probably a lot of yours. And every time I start teaching, they ask me, we don't want to hear what you're talking about. We want to know, how do we help innovate within our organizations? We don't get that opportunity. And I'm talking about, I'm going to insult probably some of the companies here, but some of the largest, biggest names in Los Angeles, they actually don't, they say they innovate, they say they have arms of innovation, but yet they really don't do it. And my company, Originate, started working with young companies with part cash, part equity, and I hired really elite designers and engineers and product and project managers. And, you know, we won some, we lost some, a lot of companies, younger companies, but I brought in really great talent. And I'm not technical. And so what we learned is the word got out that our little company was really good at the latest technologies. And we started to compete with Pivotal Labs, which is a member of this organization, BCG Digital, McKinsey Digital, Deloitte Digital, IBM Global Services, Accenture, and my company is just a little shit, a little company. And we started winning because we were really quick on our feet, and we were actually innovative ourselves. And what happened was large companies started to come to us. And they said, we hear you guys are really creative, and you do things really different, and you rapidly prototype. And so 2 of my biggest competitors became my biggest customers. And we're frenemies. So it's BCG Digital. Anybody here from BCG? And Mackenzie Digital. Good, I can talk freely. No. So basically, they're really great at strategy, but they reached out to us to rapidly prototype and build MVPs, design product, and do user testing and testing. It's sort of like what John Blevins went over in his session about innovation. You're constantly changing. You're constantly iterating. You're constantly using, finding, building something, going in the market, and finding out what people will actually pay you for, rather than what you think they want to do. So, let me ask you guys, how do you innovate in your company? I'm just curious. Do you have a separate group? Yes? And how do you do it? I only have 15 slides, so we can talk on each slide a little bit. Go ahead. I didn't ask her to ask that. So what we're finding is a lot of the technical folks, C-level people at some of the middle and large corporations are like my age. I'm old. I know I don't look it, but I'm old. And so I don't know the latest and greatest technologies, okay? And the people that we're dealing with, the C-level, CEO, CTO, CFO, CIO, a lot of C's, head of marketing, they actually feel threatened sometimes by change. Their companies are profitable. They get, a lot of people know they need to change, but they don't know how to do it. And so sometimes they go to the outside. Well, the people from the outside, then there's a friction. The people on the inside don't want to deal with the people on the outside. And unless you get buy-in from what you talked about, from the C-level, including the CEO, you're not going to have a lot of success. Because the whole organization, the whole culture of a company needs to change. If you bring in just one person, it's not going to cut it. It really, I mean, you might get lucky and it will work, but it doesn't cut it. So what we're going to do is, people always say, should I develop my own software in my new product or should I buy? And then when we ask, okay, what are you looking for? They actually don't know. I mean, for their product. So, examples. I want to use real world examples so I can talk about some of them, and some of them I can't because of NDAs, but this one I can talk about. So we were brought in, there was a very large logistics company that when Amazon bought Whole Foods, it shook up the world. All these companies are saying, my God, what if Amazon or Netflix or Apple or Facebook or Google, for them, what if they're going to come into my industry and disrupt it? What happens to my core business that's generating all my profits? What do I do? So this logistics company got all freaked out when Amazon kept changing and changing and changing something called Amazon Prime, where they deliver the next day. And they got all these lockers. So we got hired by UPS. I can talk about this one. And UPS said, we have to have an answer, or we're going to just get crushed. So this was in the Wall Street Journal a while ago. So they came to us, and we're going to go through. You can have a copy of these slides. This is a process, 15 slides that you can use in your organization. You can do it internally. I'm not here trying to sell you services, but it would be nice. No. And basically, you can go through this process yourself and figure out, do you build, do you buy, how do you proceed, okay? So we did one of these workshops that we're going to go through, the whole process that we went through, with the CEO, the CTO. They actually have a CTO and a CIO, and they came into the meetings. They brought in their staff, and then a lot of the worker bees, I'll call it, the people that actually do the work. So you had management. You brought people in from the entire organization. They came into our office, and we spent 3 days. It's a big commitment from the CEO. And what we went through, and what you'll see, the example in the slides is not UPS, it's a different company, and I don't know if you'll be able to read the stuff on the slides, but what I'm going to show you, you'll figure out what company it is. They came up with 10 ideas of what they thought they wanted to do. See, we don't have the domain knowledge. You do at your companies. Well, we were a facilitator, and then we had, if you didn't have the resources, the ability to help you get through and take the next step and the next step and the next step. Bottom line, we built something from the initial workshop to rapidly taking the 10 ideas down to 3, going away. They asked us to build an MVP, software-wise, for 3 of them. It took 4 weeks. We came back with the 4. They went into the market and tested, came back with the 3 ideas in an MVP. They went out to the market, came back and said, we want to commercialize 1. This is what we want to go with. And so it's called Where to Go. And what they did is it was a little bit of Airbnb. Remember, we're talking logistics. And Amazon Prime. They basically went out. We used AI and machine learning and things that I don't understand, but my people do, my team. And basically came up with not only UPS facilities, but every warehousing facility that's available for rent in every location in the United States. And if you have a new customer or you know you're going to be, for holiday season, shipping to a specific company a lot, you can rent online for a day, a week, a month, a year, 1,000 square feet to 10 million square feet on demand. And that's what they're now selling as Where to Go, and they're competing with Amazon Prime. Now, whether it's perfect, it was what they came up with going through the process we're going to show you, or I'm going to show you. So the first thing, though, is how do you get buy-in? And if you hire somebody, one person, or you have an innovation department, if they're not talking with the technical folks who are going to end up building it and delivering it, servicing it, maintaining it, it's not going to work. But you need buy-in from the entire organization. So I'm curious, has anybody here done an innovation, transformation product recently? You're shaking your head yes, he's shaking his head no. Or do you work for the same company? You don't know. Yeah, he's in the same company. No. So what did you do? How did you approach it? Well, who are you, first of all? Oh, yeah. Yes. Great. And how did that all start in your organization? Okay. Very good. And parts of the whole organization? Did you bring in people from all different parts? Right. Up to the CEO or general manager? Okay. You're a big company, so you don't do Post-its, do you? You do labels. The reason I ask is our process, we use Post-its. We're very technologically savvy, okay? And we're going to show you. Okay, so that's okay. I'm probably your biggest user now because it works because we can put it on the wall and pull it off the wall. By the way, I went to a meeting at Disney the other day, and the entire wall, in Glendale, And the accelerator for Disney is across the street from a big building for Disney. And if you looked up to the big building, every window had Post-its all over it. And they were, I think, going through the same process, similar process that we were doing, and I'll show it to you right now. So basically, what most companies, they come to us and they go, we want to do AI. I go, what's AI? They go, we don't know, will you tell us? I go, why do you think you want to do AI? Well, it's the hottest thing, and everybody's talking about it, and our customers asking us when we're going to have artificial intelligence in our product. Well, do you need it? We don't know. Well, you laugh, but this is what's going on. I mean, we're dealing with some of the largest companies in the world and across different sectors, and you'd be shocked. You'd think everybody would know, and they'd be very sophisticated in all this stuff, and they may have people within their organizations that know this stuff, but I don't think the people at the top understand the knowledge base of a lot of the people that they have in the organization, and people just don't know how to bring it up. It all comes back to culture into your organization. So we need to take everything to the cloud. So one of our clients, I can talk about this too, was the Deutsche Börse. So I have an office in Berlin. The Deutsche Börse is the world's largest stock exchange, bigger than the New York Stock Exchange. They were the ones that were going to buy the London Stock Exchange, but the EU said no. They said, we have everything on our own servers. We use the SAP and Oracle and all the big systems. We have nothing in the cloud. We want to reduce our infrastructure costs by $1 billion. We spend $3 billion a year just on the data. How do we do it? They have innovation centers across the world, but they don't know how to do this themselves. And we're not server kind of people, but we facilitated and helped them through the process I'm going to show you figure out how to save $1 billion a year with maintaining the security. So cybersecurity, we have been interviewed by 6 or 7 banks, commercial banks that you know, saying we want to get closer to millennial customers. And we don't know how to do it. But we also petrified and scared of cybersecurity. We know we have to go more mobile to deal with the millennials. They don't want to. My business partner, the founder of Originate, is 29 years younger than me, and he will not do a phone call. You're laughing. He won't even return an email. He texts. It drives me nuts. I don't text that much, okay? So it's just, the millennials, it's a different world. I'm 68. I know I don't look it. I'm 68, and I don't know all this stuff, okay? I don't use Facebook or Snapchat or Pinterest or what are the other ones? Twitter. I have LinkedIn. But it's hard for me. I'm not the user usually. I'm not the millennial user. And then everybody goes, depending on our product, we'd love to get into virtual reality and robotics. So everybody uses all the buzzwords. And so we basically say, we try to work with the CTOs, the CIOs, and the C-level executives in an organization to try to figure out what's really important to them. They haven't even defined the product. So when they say, should we buy versus sell, we don't know what to tell them because we don't know what they need. So part of this workshop process is to come up with what they really think they need in their organization. And by having people from all different aspects of the company in the meeting, you find out what's important to the management, what's important to the technical people, what's important to marketing, what's important to the CFO, and then you can figure out and make an intelligent decision, do you buy versus build? Okay, because you may not need everything that you're building. I mean, Professor Blevins in his session said a lot of companies just keep adding and adding and adding features, and then somebody comes in and comes in with a lower cost, less feature product that people actually use. Some of these companies don't keep adding on, and you don't even use the features. And so you can, having everything's not necessarily the right answer, okay? And we made a big mistake at my company. We spent $1 million at cost to build an AI platform called Exosphere that would fit above um, the older systems that are on servers and everything, legacy systems, and to plug in, and we thought everybody would buy into it. And my team, this is me, and I teach this stuff, they put all the things they thought everybody wanted. Then we went out to customers. We actually did one of these field studies through John Blevins. It was an executive education field study. They came back and said, do not go to market with your product in the industry you're going to. You're going to get crushed because you're not as good as the competition. And I'm a teacher there, and I paid for this. And they gave me an answer I didn't think I was going to get, but they probably saved me $1 million or $2 million in marketing by not launching the product. Now, they did tell me to go into a different vertical. So don't get, we drank our own Kool-Aid, and we almost made a huge mistake for a little company. I'm just a little company. So why do you need these? Have any of you put any of this in your products? Your offerings? At your companies? Yeah. What did you do? And how did you determine what you needed and how to do it? I'm just curious. I don't, which company are you? I know Deluxe. Yeah, okay. Good company. Because of their people. Yes. No, so look, a lot of, I mean, you talk about Avery Dennison. I thought he was talking about chili for a minute, but yeah. Do you make chili too? Or is that Dennison chili? Sorry, yeah, okay. You haven't bought that yet? Yeah. Maybe after today you'll buy going to Chile, right? Okay. So a lot of industries are getting disrupted. I mean, the entertainment media is getting totally disrupted. Everybody's waiting and can't wait to see what, I'm going to screw this name up. Is it Quigley? Right. They raised $1 billion. They're launching their product March 1st. Actually, one of our other people in our programs is the product manager doing this. And everybody's waiting to see what in the hell the first project is going to be, and can they really make money for their investors with what they come out. This is short content going against Netflix and what Disney's doing. They got some big competitors. And so we'll see if they do it better. They're going to try to disrupt the entertainment and media industry with what they're coming out with, and we'll see. So do you want to gain market share? Oops, sorry, I didn't do the slide. Do you want to gain market share? The commercial banks that I talked about want millennial customers. Are you going to try to defend against new competitors? Why do you want to build a product or a software? Why are you doing this? I mean, what's the goal? It may not even be to make more money. It may be to reduce churn, which in effect gives you more money. Churn means you lose customers and you got to replace them all the time. If you can hang on to a customer longer, it makes your company more profitable. So do you want increased speed and efficiency? Do you want to reduce operational costs? So we've gone through the process I'm going to now take you through in retail, in banking, in insurance, in education, in real estate, in healthcare. Believe it or not, we did a project for Amazon, not Amazon, for Amgen, they're similar, with using blockchain for biotech. Interesting, huh? They asked us to help them figure out if they can use blockchain in what they're doing and going through FDA approval and all sorts of different things that are very complicated with regulatory. We did media and entertainment, the logistics one I told you. We did networking, and we did transportation. We used AI and blockchain for a company called Cummins Engine. It's a Fortune 100 company, on how to do their logistics and supply chain across the country as their fleet of trucks and everything were going through. And using AI, don't ask me what we did and how they did it, but my team did that, and they've launched that, and it's improved their efficiency tremendously by reducing downtime of their fleet. And so it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what vertical, the new technologies can be used to help you. This earlier, I was asked to do a UCLA worldwide alumni event in New York on blockchain, be the moderator, like John was this morning. And I panicked because I thought blockchain, Bitcoin. I didn't know what blockchain really was. And I went to Anderson. Now, by the way, I went to USC, so maybe that explains it. But yes, I'm a trader. I teach at Anderson. And I basically did a deep dive into what blockchain was. We had people at this alumni event from Goldman Sachs, from JP Morgan, all the top, Fidelity, Vanguard, who was in New York. And I learned enough to at least not screw up. And I learned what blockchain really was and how it could be used in different industries, because we had panelists that the UCLA set up. And I can tell you, blockchain is here to stay. Now, cryptocurrency, I don't know. How many of you own Bitcoin? Whoa. 3, 4, 5. He's not admitting it. So do you understand it? Does everybody who invested in it understand it? No. Why did you invest? See, she wanted to experiment. She's innovative, yeah. Okay, so, how do you go about, what is this process I've been talking about? And I'm not gonna, you can read the slides. You can get copies of these and go through it. But what's key here is communication. What's key here is getting an organization to buy into this. And I'm talking at the highest level. And I'm telling you, if you don't get, it doesn't necessarily have to be the CEO, but if you don't get C-level executives to work with you on this, and the people who actually, the example I'm going to give you, they called it, well, I'll show you the slide. They had different names for their management people and the people who are in the trenches actually building the products. And so we go through this process. We get people in the room. It's 2 to 3 days. This is not an expensive thing to go through. You can do this yourself. You can facilitate this yourself. You sit in a room and you go, okay, what are we trying to solve? What do we think we're going to use? And we then go through how are we going to build and design transformative software, because almost everything has software in it. First is you got to build this team that I'm talking about and bring everybody together into a room, and no disruptions. You turn off your cell phones. You don't take out the calls. You've really got to, because what we're going to go through, we do in 2 to 3 days. It would take you 2 to 3 months to do normally. And so it really takes attention. You want to bring people in who really buy into this and who really care. So you need to build complementary partnerships and integrated working teams into the room. And you go through these several things, which these are words, but you go through different origin sprints. Again, you can read what these are. You go through proof of concepts, but you go through and you sit down and you say, what's important to you? Everyone in the room, whether they're the janitor or the CEO, what are you trying to get out of it for your organization? And you write these things on a Post-it, and you put them on a wall, okay? And as you iterate and you go through, you try to figure out what's important and not important to the organization as a whole. And you also need to figure out what the goal is, what we talked about earlier. Is it time to market? Is it defending against the competition? Is it going into a new market? What are you doing? Then you talk about the technology, okay? And as part of this, you're going to assign part of this team to subsequently go out and find out what products are available off the shelf. This is how we start getting into this buy versus build. We're not going to go through a financial analysis here, but you need to know what's out there and what the feature sets are. And you will assign somebody to go do that so that you'll then try to compare what's available, what you actually need, what's it going to cost to build what you actually need, because until you define it, people go, I need this. What's it going to cost? I don't know what you really need, so it's hard for me to tell you. And then, you got to figure out, can you do it internally? What are the skill sets you need? Or do you need to go out? And then the big decision, do I go overseas for 25 to 30 bucks an hour? Or do I use a very high-end company here for 250 to 300 bucks an hour? What do I do? And if I offshore it, am I worried about IP? Be very careful if you offshore critical code. Maintaining Non-critical code, it's fine. And really check out who you deal with. So you're going to go through, and then the user, the human-centered design. Are you trying to accelerate your product, or are you trying to do a new product? You're going to go through all of these things. Okay, so the process is, there's a process for the product, there's a process for design, there's a process for product and project management, and you basically go through talking to one another, and I'll show you how the Post-its work in a minute, talking to one another to figure out the feature sets that you want to build, what you think the tools and tech are, and then you want to iterate this several times in a matter of an afternoon. And you have a facilitator, and oh, by the way, you have the CEO or the most senior person in the room say, you can say anything, it will not be held against you, and you have a very open and frank conversation. Because if you don't, you won't succeed. Okay? So under product development, you have the discovery phase of what you want the product to be. You try to visualize it and then realize it. And again, we only have a few minutes, so I won't go into the nuts and bolts of this, but again, you can get a copy of this and you can read what we do during these workshops. I want to get to the end to see how it all works. But we go through product development. And by the way, in the room is a product manager. In the room are engineers, people who actually do coding, or maybe a data scientist. In the room is a CFO or a financial person. From the company, if we facilitate this for a company, they bring in normally 10 people, approximately, for 2 to 3 days. That's the whole purpose of it. No, we do it as a group, and then we break into groups, and then we mix. Excellent, thank you. I did something right. And we rotate. So the financial person talks to the technical person talks to the marketing person, and we rotate, and then we come back, and we continue to come back, and what's been written in the beginning, we start adding or pulling off what's important to everybody, because they're learning from each other, and what you find out is you really don't know what everybody does in your organization. And again, this is all cultural, okay? And it needs to be done in an environment that there is no ramifications if somebody gives what somebody thinks is a stupid idea. There are no stupid ideas. Professor Blevin says, I have stupid ideas all the time, but no, they're not stupid. They're very creative. They're just ahead of their time, okay? So in design is really critical, by the way. Everything comes down to ease of use, how easy it is to work with your users, not only your users, but also your employees, your team. So it has to work for everybody. And so we use a user-centered design. We make sure it's consistent, and we make sure that whatever we're trying to get through is very clear in how we communicate it. This sounds simple. It isn't so simple when you lay it down and you're in a room and you're talking to everybody and you're trying to solve all these issues. And then the product. We do we figure out how the design works with the product that we think, the feature sets that we think we're going to have. And then we do rapid prototyping, and you're going to see an example of this in a minute. And then after the prototyping, after the workshops, the company goes out, or you hire a third party to go get user validation. And that's really critical. Don't build what you think everybody wants. Build what your users, your customers, what your competition doesn't have that people are willing to pay for, that could enhance your product. Most companies are not as successful as they could be because they build what they think everybody wants, because they think they're smarter than everybody, because they know their own business. And things are changing so fast. I mean, everything changes so fast. And you need to continually go through this process, even after you've done it. So 3 clear goals are to, have a design at a high level, lay out the technical and the procedural viability, and then you do a scope to come out with a first version, okay? What we did here, this is what a normal workshop looks like in the mornings, and this is a 2-day one. You basically align on the business context and objectives. You talk and talk and talk. You explored the needs and core needs of each user group. And then you imagine ways in which you might serve those needs, come up with what the company, and then develop and prioritize lists of potential product features. Then the team goes away, and believe it or not, they do a design. So when you come back the next morning, I mean, it's rough, but they put into touch and feel something that has been discussed the day before, and you basically are iterating already on the second morning. You look at the UX, you look and see if you've hit it or if you've missed it. And some of these go 2 to 3 or 4 days, but you do this in a matter of days. And then you review and refine the technical aspects and revise the feature set. And then again, you have your first scope, and then the company goes away. They can do this internally, they can hire a third party, and then they come back literally. If they want to build if you decide on 1 or 2, you may say, we want an MVP. So you either build it internally or you go externally to build it. You come back literally in 3 or 4 weeks and then decide if you want to go forward in commercialization. Or at that point, now that you defined it, the person who's been studying what is off the shelf and what you can buy, you'll lay down the products and features and compare what's important to what you came up with to what's there and decide, do you want to buy versus build? What's more important? You could do both, by the way. You could buy an off-the-shelf product that has some of the features, go to market, and at the same time possibly be building your own product with more comprehensive features, because you're getting testing and you can change what you're going to build internally for the commercialization. Understand, building a product will most likely be more expensive every time. I mean, you know Howard he runs a big organization, and he's a very smart guy. But almost 100% of the time, I can say building a product from scratch will be more than buying an off-the-shelf version of it. But that may serve your needs. That may be all you need. But you think you got to do something. We use open source code in almost everything we build for third parties and ourselves, and it reduces the cost substantially. But then we have secret sauces and stuff that we pour on top of that. And so you can do things very economically if you know all the tools and what's available out there. And again, you guys you're the smart people. You're mostly from the technical side, so you know what's available out there. So the example we did was with a large real estate company, and they called their internal people managers and makers. So the managers are the people that were responsible for the P&L, they were responsible for the business units. And the makers basically are those within the organization that actually do the work. And they have to build and then take to market, sell, maintain, service it, and to make sure that what they are building or what they're buying off the shelf works. And what we do is we go through, now you'll start seeing the little Post-its. We go through and figure out what, of all the things that was discussed, what are pain points, what solve pain points, and what does each group get out of this? And you work in parallel to get profiles for each of the business users, business groups, and then also customer groups. And we fill this in as we go across, and the different colors of the Post-its are the priority of what we've come up with. And we're constantly pulling off. This is where the people who make Post-its make out, because you pull them off, throw them away, and you go buy another one. And what we end up with in this process is 1 or 2 or 3. Again, I don't need to read all of these. You can do this on your own. We go through and we do we understand the market. We analyze the pricing. We understand recommended pricing changes in your product. We share the findings, and then we figure out how we're going to monitor the changes as we go forward for what we're building. And it affects how we analyze what's a pain and what's a gain, and if it makes sense or not. I know I'm going very fast, but we're covering something we do in 3 days and 35 minutes or something. And so we come up with, finally, a summary. Whoops, that's me. We come up with a summary of all this work that we've done with the team, figure out who's going to go forward and take it after the 2 or 3 days, set up the time for when we're coming back together, and then decide, again, on the final feature sets and figure out if there's a off-the-shelf product that works good enough, or do they go and commercialize it. And it can take a long time. It can take 2 to 3 years to commercialize a product, build it from scratch, or longer. We did the Where to Go product in 8 months from the workshop. But that's because, very important. All those industries that I talked about, each of the large companies, whether it be real estate, logistics, the retailer, the networking company that we worked with, formed subsidiaries. They did not pull the new product, this innovative transformation product, into the core. They took 1 or 2 or 3 key people from their organization. They then hired external people, and they started a subsidiary. I will give you another example without mentioning the name, because I'm not allowed to mention the name. Does anybody drink coffee? Does anybody know the coffee company that's in Seattle that has a mermaid on the cup? Okay, so we built, through another company, all their mobile. If you've used their ordering and all of that, that was us. It was so successful for them, and it's used hundreds of millions of times a day around the world, that they formed a subsidiary with the company that hired us to work on this. They think we work for that company. And they formed a subsidiary, and they're now white labeling that product for other verticals. And it's become very, very successful. And they raised a lot of money out of it. Where to Go? UPS jettisoned and formed a subsidiary. The product we built for Cummins Engine built a subsidiary. And the reason is they felt if they brought it into the these are large companies. If they brought it into the large company, the culture of the main company could destroy it and limit the success. So I'm curious, Avery Dennison, the chili company, you kept it in the core company? Or did you form a new entity for these products that you developed in innovation and transformational way? Pardon? You haven't spun it out yet. And the company that, the product you did with blockchain or machine learning, did you keep it in the core company? Okay, interesting. Does anybody have experience of coming up with a brand new product and whether you kept it in your organization or not? Does anybody care? You should see your faces. Lunch is soon. Food, food, food. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, John, come up and see. And Howard, you can answer these. Yes.
So, understanding that this is a process that you can use for new software development, how would you work with existing apps or products where there's sort of a legacy built in environment?
Right. So I can only tell you what we've done in our organization, because we're not like a Salesforce implementation company for CRM. We're not, like I mentioned, SAP and Oracle. But what we do is we build on top of it. We basically take open source software. We work with the legacy systems, but we build on top of it and this is what that whole AI exosphere that we were going to do is have a whole bunch of, you can pick and choose what you want and we can link into everything. We're not trying to change. You can build additional features without changing the actual core technology. You're saying no? We've done it. Well, the answer is for the long term, yes. But what's important to you? What's in your wallet? No, what's important to you? Capital One, is that where you work? Yeah, okay. He made me say that. No. What's important to you? I mean, sometimes it's important to get to market quickly. So not that these are Band-Aids, but it's not the right solution. you're going to probably have to rewrite or switch core technologies over time. But because you don't want to be jumped over, you want to test things so that you don't become ancient in an industry. You may want to go to market earlier with a Band-Aid, which is, again, that's the key. Time to market. What's the goal? Is it to get to market quickly? Is it to change your legacy systems, change the whole infrastructure? I mean, working with the Deutsche Börse and trying to reduce $1 billion of a $3 billion budget of maintaining archaic old systems, very, very difficult. Okay. Any other questions? Uh-oh. Yes? You're just sorry that you didn't own, you could have owned Jewel.
So Jeff, looks like your approach is very similar to
What you're doing.
JP Knapp's approach on Sprint.
Yeah, yes.
Design thinking, is that where
Similar, no, well, I haven't read that book, so no. We just developed this ourselves, working, hiring different people from different backgrounds, and we call it the Agile. We really don't use the word sprint, but I think they're all similar. I mean, there are several concepts in a business model, canvases, that you can, that overlap. But yeah, so this is not proprietary in any way, shape, or fashion. The reason we're willing to share this with you and how we go about it is it's not rocket science. It's logical. But your question is?
I was just curious, it looks very similar to the approach.
Oh, good. Is it a good approach? We have a whole bunch of designers, so yeah. So we believe this process is the new way to do product development in the future. And it's very design-centric, you're correct. Yes? Yeah. When do we make that decision? Well, it depends on the goal of the corporation. But no, you don't necessarily have to build. To win, you don't have to be the best product. You have to execute properly. You have to give great service. There's a lot of things that go into it. So, but with the decision on buy versus build is made after you define what you really need. You can't make an intelligent decision until you know the feature sets that you really must absolutely have by all parts of the corporation. The CEO may have one vision, and the CTO has another. So by coming together and bringing everybody from the group, you can solve this. That make sense?
Yeah, I think the strategy is the evaluation of the startups, and then how much do we want to give that extra valuation.
But understand, a lot of these I would have bet 5 months ago you would want to be WeWork. You may be out of business in 6 months if you don't get more financing. I mean, that they don't necessarily do everything the correct way either, okay? But to get a big valuation, you don't necessarily have to have the gold standard in product. It will come as you grow. Okay, you had a question?
Just from a platform perspective, at what point do you potentially bring in platforms? Kind of an enabler, which you could then potentially innovate in a lot of different.
Well, you want to know the truth to that?
Yeah.
We don't like, I shouldn't say we don't like to my clients. We want to be a product company, not just a service company. So we wanted to build this platform so we could sell SaaS products across the board. Valuations for SaaS products are much higher than valuations for service companies. So, but I think having a platform is, if you have the time and you have the resources, is the right way to go long term. In the short term, it may be better to buy. There is no one answer fits all. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a lighthearted question. You talk a lot about culture inside the organization. And I was just curious, from the global cultures around the world, which one was the most interesting and provided was the most challenging for your prospects to operate?
Japan. For me, I don't know, John does a lot of international work too. South, well, okay, that's in. By the way, we are bidding on some. You want to talk about a project? Anybody here a soccer fan? Okay, where's the World Cup in 2022? Do you know? Okay, we have bid on digitizing the entire country of Qatar. They have absolutely nothing. And they don't want, after the World Cup, they want to be known. And so, talk about a massive project. If I get this, I'll probably want to hire everybody in this room. Nobody wants to work with me. Okay.
The answer was Japan.
For me, he's saying South Korea. I've had good luck. I mean, again, it depends on who you're dealing with. So, Japan is very, at least the people I sold a very large company to NEC, and so I worked with NEC extensively. Different countries and different companies have different cultures. So it actually depends on the culture of the company. I also had, dealing with the Middle Eastern countries, sometimes can get difficult because they like to renegotiate once you negotiate.
How about former companies, Middle East ones?
I've not had issues, personally. I haven't done a ton of business. How about you, John? Yeah, I've done some business. I've not had issues.
It was just a question that came to mind because it seems like you have a pretty good handle on your process and it works within a certain context. But I would imagine in the whole world there's got to be some places that doesn't.
Oh, of course. I'm sure it's got to be adjusted. But we've done it throughout Europe. We did it in the Ukraine. Okay. We've done it in Japan. We've done it in South Korea. We haven't done it yet. If we get Qatar, we'll have to do it there. That should be interesting. Mostly developed countries. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for attending. And remember, God bless America and God bless UCLA.